Good morning. Okay, so today we are answering questions this week about that were offered that we couldn't quite answer because of time constraints in worship. So one of the questions was about humor and is there humor in the Bible, and then asking for specifics. So this was kind of fun to look up to get the specifics again. But I've got five or six different things. The difficulty with humor, as we look at it, is that so many jokes are plays off of culture and sleight of speech and other things where euphemisms or double entendres are intentional to get to kind of make something a joke, comparing body parts or other things, and mockery is a part of humor. Good morning, Sherry. And so I've got a couple of ones that are more clean jokes, and then one that I want to kind of point out that when you see this, that people would have been snickering through their fingers as they read these passages. So the first one is the passage in Matthew 7 verses 9 through 11, which Jesus is chatting with his disciples um, about that God will give you what you need, essentially, and says if you ask for food, God's not going to give you rocks or a snake. And this is kind of a play, loosely joking with the folks about God gives you what you need, and it is meant to be slightly humorous, but also like, really, you're worried about this? I just got done showing you the majesty of what I can do. Um, Trust what God can do. So then we have another one. This one was pretty amusing to me. There's a passage in 1 Kings chapter 18, which is Elijah and the priests of Baal. And essentially they're trying to prove whose God is the better. And so what happens is they build two pyres, and then they each pray to their gods and see whose wood pile starts on fire. And when the priests of Baal start to try and call down the power of their God, nothing happens. And in the middle of this, as this is happening, Elijah begins to mock them, and saying, maybe your God. So in the middle of it, maybe your God's going to the restroom and can't hear you. So it just goes to show that potty humor is not a new thing. Um, Another one is the Legion of Roman Pigs. So there's the passage where Jesus casts out these demons from a guy who's in the Decapolis region, and that as the pigs are cast out. First off, there's a couple of jokes here. One is that the demon calls itself Legion, which would have been a direct connection with Rome, because the Roman legions were how they took over and how they maintained um, military might. And so, called the legion of the demon calling itself Legion is a mockery of Rome. First off, okay, that should connect us one to Rome. So they're making fun of Rome. Then the other part is that then they get sent into pigs, which are unclean to the Jewish people. So there's a second joke on the Romans. LOL. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. Sorry. Too much time around my teenagers. The the next part is that they go run off the cliffs. So what's the old adage? Oh, we want them to take a long walk off a short cliff, and so they do. And then that's the mockery, is that the evil creatures that are sent out of people to make them better are Romans, and they need to take a long walk off a short cliff. Another one I find funny is Balaam's donkey story, and this is the one where in Numbers 29, where Balaam is trying to do something he's not supposed to, and so his donkey can see this angel that is invisible, and it keeps stopping him from getting himself killed, over and over, to the point where then the donkey has to talk because Balaam has been so dumb. And so it just kind of it's a joke, but it's a real kind of like commentary that sometimes we are dumber than the stubborn mules of animals. There's a lot of jokes that have come from that. Um, a lot of different kind of sideways things. Even the colloquial term that more commonly gets used for when someone's being a stubborn pain in the backside. Hi, Peggy. Another one. Okay, so this one is the one where it gets a little dirty. Uncovering feet. This is said throughout the Old Testament. And so when someone's feet are uncovered, the word feet is a double entendre or euphemism for genitalia. And so this means that every time you hear about somebody's feet being covered or uncovered, it is an implication at something either risque, naughty, or it's intended to be like kind of a dirty joke. And so people, as they would have read these passages, would have been snickering through their fingers as you look at it. So this was kind of a fun question to look at. Where is there humor in the Bible? Because it is all over. And where we kind of lose that is sometimes we look at this holy document and we don't realize that God has humor too. And how do we know that? Because we think things are funny. I think kind of the difference between the humor of us and the humor of God is that there might be a silliness. Sometimes we laugh a little too much at other people's pain or other people's hurt, whereas I don't think God does that. But there's still plays on words and plays on our attitudes and an admission sometimes that we can be as stubborn as a donkey. But these are just 6 different versions, 6 different examples. So it is important to know there is plenty of humor in the Bible. I also had someone jokingly say to me, and I agreed with them, that if you don't think God has a sense of humor, how about the duck-billed platypus? And there's other creatures that, if you look at it, you're like, well, that was creative. I wonder if this was more a matter of entertainment or fun that could be had, that God was kind of putting different parts together. At least that's what it looks like from the outside. So I hope that today is a blessing for you, and maybe you find a little bit of humor in the odd stories in Scripture, but more likely I'm inviting you to find some of the humor in today. Maybe it'll bring some levity to you in times of sorrow or frustration. Sometimes humor is one of those things that lightens things up. So may your day be a blessing of joy and laughter.